And thanks everyone for joining the call today to talk about reducing your Oracle support costs. This webinar is actually a long time in the making. Palisade, we've been in business since 2011. And the first 3 customers we had that walked through the door all had the same story. They all thought they were spending too much on Oracle support. They all went to Oracle and said, can you please help me reduce my support costs? And they were all audited by Oracle. In fact, one of those customers, they were spending about $35,000 a year on Oracle support, and they got a non-compliance bill from Oracle for $1.1 million. So obviously, not the result that they had intended, and just shows you that Oracle is not in the business of reducing their costs for their clients. So it's up to the client to take control of that situation and find a way to reduce their costs where they can. So long time in the making for this webinar, and I'm really excited about the cost reduction service that we're going to announce here at the end. But before I get into that, let me just introduce our speakers. Myself, Craig Arenti, I'm the founder of Palisade. Spent 16 years at Oracle before starting this company. So almost 25 years now in the Oracle contracting and licensing and cost industry, I guess. And I'm joined by Allison Adams. Allison, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Craig, and thanks everyone for joining. My name is Allison Adams. I'm a senior director here at Palisade, and I've been here since 2016, and my role here at Palisade is sort of varied in terms of helping customers with various types of engagements, as well as heading up our contracts team. But prior to joining Palisade, I was at Oracle for quite some time and had different roles, and those roles included areas related to technical support. So prior to me joining Palisade, I was actually global owner of Oracle's technical support policies and practices. And prior to that was actually worked in the support organization, doing transactional approvals, business approvals on a global basis.
Thanks, Allison. So today, between the two of us, folks are getting about 45 years of Oracle-related experience around contracting and support policies. So there'll be an opportunity to ask some questions. You can put them on the chat. So anything you want to know from us, please don't hesitate. This is our agenda for today. We'll do a really quick introduction to Palisade. We'll talk a little bit about Oracle support, give you some background on that. And then we'll talk about 3 steps every client needs to take to reduce their Oracle costs. We'll give you 3 case studies, and then we'll talk about our program and how that works. So Palisade Compliance, we've got over 300 customers now in the few years we've been in existence. This display here is a list of services that we perform, from Oracle Audit Defense. Oracle's already sent you the audit letter, to being very proactive, to helping with Java, to helping with all parts of a ULA, the beginning, the middle, and the end. Any types of contract negotiations, we can help you with that. We've got subscriptions and retainers and training and things like that. So it runs the gamut. Palisade is completely independent of Oracle. We're not an Oracle partner. We're not an Oracle reseller. As a matter of fact, we're not a reseller of anybody's products. The only way we make money is by giving our clients really good advice so that they can achieve their goals. Here's a few of our clients over the years. We've collected, like I said, over 300, and here's a few that we've helped in various ways. And you can see it's various industries, government, commercial, Europe, APAC, North America, Latin America, all over the place. So before we get into our presentation, I thought we would issue a poll question. So Jen, can you put up a poll question here? Do you think you're getting good value from your Oracle support? So are you spending the right amount for what you're getting? And Allison, you're gonna talk a little bit about some of our clients' experience here in a minute. It's a little bit of a loaded question here, I know, but folks want to give that an answer? Jen, what's the result there? So a little bit split here. About 50% say they're indifferent, so not really sure if they're spending enough or not enough, and you know, 2/3 of the rest are saying that they're not getting good value. So interesting feedback here. So Allison, I will pass this. Well, before I pass it off to you, any feedback on that?
No, I think it's an interesting answers. I think it's consistent with what we see with Palisade customers with respect to their experience with Oracle. And as you said, I'll sort of talk a little bit more about that in the next section.
Sure. So off to you, Allison.
Thanks, Greg. So one of the things at Palisade is that we hear quite a bit is, and I would say is, you know, our number one complaint is that we pay too much for Oracle support. So it's a common thing that we hear. Coming from Oracle and a support background and understanding how Oracle works with respect to support, it's kind of an interesting finding to me when I hear this on the other side now. So when we look at this, it's like, you know, well, we pay too much for support. But let's sort of delve into a little bit of the background behind some of this. So a couple of years ago, Oracle used to split out on its financials, its support revenue. They've now combined that with cloud. So the numbers is a little less clear. But when they did split it out, the revenues for support were about half of the revenues for Oracle. So a significant, obviously, portion of Oracle's bottom line. Also, too, it's a high margin business for Oracle. So in some cases, you know, again, it could be about 95% margin with respect to what customers are paying. So as we talk about that, it's a significant part of Oracle's business. You know, again, that may drive certain behaviors as well, too. And then also, too, let's talk about Oracle contracts and policies. So in many cases, you know, Oracle say we pay too much for support. We're not really sure we understand this, you know, where's the value? We've been a long-term supported customer, et cetera. So when we talk about contracts and policies, there's a lot of things that Oracle does in their contracts, and they do this sort of across the board, even in cloud as well too, is really talking about embedding URLs. So for example, in an Oracle on-premise contract, we'll be talking about the technical support policies. Embedded in the technical support policies are Oracle's license set and matching service level language, which most of you are probably very familiar with. But also, too, even in Oracle contracts, they may indicate that matching service level and license set requirements as well, too. So it's in a number of different places. And it's interesting because I did hear when I was at Oracle, it was an interesting kind of comment around, you know, customers really do have the option. And the option really is when you talk about license set and matching service level, I'm not sure how good of an option it is because when you talk about matching service level, you need to support everything or nothing. So there's a choice that you need to make. Also, too, with respect to Oracle support and its background, typically speaking, is that, you know, customers, when they say they pay too much for Oracle support, it's also tied to the value that they're getting. Not only that, obviously they're paying a large amount of money, they need to pay that on a recurring basis, but there's also about value that's derived from that as well. So for example, if you have a longer term deployment and you call in for Oracle support, you submit a service request, oftentimes you'll get told to upgrade to the next release. Many of our customers, and this is a recurring theme as well too, do not submit a lot to Oracle in terms of support requests. Many of our customers have their own internal teams that manage to quite a bit of that. And then also too, with respect to value, there's limited or no option. So for example, if you have a stable release and you want to stay on that stable release, there's no way for you to sort of mix and match support. There's limited options with respect to de-supporting a subset of that, maybe related to a specific project or business unit, et cetera. So when we talk about that paying too much for support, it has that two sides to that same coin. So next slide, please, Greg. And then, you know, when we talk about the true cost of support, let's just talk about the facts and figures and the value and the amount that's paid. So 22% is of net license fees is the Oracle support calculation. It's been that for some time. And again, it's been that for a very long time. But after that initial year, and typically, you know, that 22% is in the initial year, and then typically after that initial year, there's going to be an uplift. Oracle institutes or implements an inflationary adjustment or an uplift that they apply, and that varies depending on geography, country, et cetera. So that will vary in terms of that. So in the US, for example, that might be a 3% uplift. So that's applied each year. Now, there could be in your contract, you may have some cost protection there, so you may have negotiated something differently with Oracle, but at some point in time, that will expire as well too. So when we take a look at our own customer base, and we've done some analysis on the type of intake that we've taken, when we talk about non-ULA licenses, the average Oracle license is about 9 years old. So when you look at that from a costing perspective, if you look at attaching the uplift on a yearly basis, customers then at some point in time can pay around 28%, and that's pretty consistent with the customers that we take a look at with respect to timeframes and what they're paying as a percentage of net license fees. And in many cases, depending on currency fluctuations and other issues, if you're outside the US, then your support dollars, your support amount that you're paying respective or related to your net license fees could be much higher, 40 or 50%. So as we see in terms of the true cost of Oracle support over time, that does increase for you. This graphic here is a summary of what's referred to as Oracle's lifetime support policies, and I'll get into a little bit of that, where you'll see in the red, and I think this is a really good snapshot when we talk about cost, value, what's provided under support. It's really important to take a look at this. So when we talk about lifetime support, and it's a little bit confusing in terms of how that's defined, what that means, if we refer to that, if we talk about it. Oracle implemented this lifetime support policy several years ago. So essentially what they said is, again, a very reasonable way to approach this to go to market is really to say, look, we're going to be with you during the life of your program. In fact, though, it's broken up into different periods of time in terms of what that means. So again, and it gets confusing too, because Oracle refers to its on-premise offering as software update license support. You might hear it referred to as Premier support. So again, there's even confusion in Oracle's naming methodology with respect to that. But just clearly, looking at the differences, when you talk about Premier support, that's generally just the initial 5 years after a release goes into general availability. So you'll see here, there's a lot of greens on this list under Premier support, in terms of things that are offered as a specific offering under that. In addition, you'll see here from a pricing perspective, it's the 22%, but it's a 5-year period, right? So it's 22%, and then an uplift gets carried forward in those subsequent years. When we start getting out past that 5-year point, there's a couple of different things that happen. And again, I'm going to just move over to sustaining support because extended support is not offered on every release. It's usually a terminal release, and it sort of has limited applicability for different programs. But when you talk about sustaining support, as you'll see in this graphic, there's a lot of no's and a lot of red here. And what that means is that essentially after that 5-year period, if it goes directly into, goes into sustaining support, then what happens over time is that you're getting less and less for the value because, Oracle, from a reasonable perspective, they're moving to newer. They need to support the newer releases and versions. So they sort of want to dissuade customers from staying on that stable release. But, as we all know from a deployment practice perspective, it sometimes makes sense to stay on that stable release for a period of time. So when we talk about that over time, you'll see that sustaining support, there's less than what was provided under Premier support. From a pricing perspective, there's really no difference. You're paying the same. So you've paid that 22% in the initial year under Premier support. Oracle's attached or those uplifts over that period of time. That's again what you're paying for sustaining support. So that 28% number we talked about in the previous slide may actually be for releases that are currently in sustaining support. So there's no new updates and patches and all of that related to that. So. And then for extended support, when it's offered, again, that's something where you can take a look at it. There's additional fees. So what that allows you to do during that period, it's generally a 3-year period. There is an uplift. So you'll pay your 22% or whatever your current amount is that you're paying for support. And then there's an uplift applied on top of that to get you the access to the things that you need for that period of time. So again, it's really important to note that there is a change in the lifetime of the support offering in terms of what gets offered. The pricing doesn't necessarily change, And again, you'll see that the services do change over that period of time. So back again to the costs and the value related to support, this graphic does a great job of explaining those differences over time. So let's go to an actual example, which is sort of, fun to talk about, but these are actually two different examples. The one on the left with the Post-it note, there was a customer that was in attendance with a bunch of other folks in a meeting. They had their laptop open. They had a bunch of sticky notes on that laptop with a bunch of names and numbers. And someone asked, what is that? Or are those the folks that if you need support from Oracle, that you would, you have a name and a number, you contact them. And the customer's answer was, no, these are the people that if I do get this person, I actually hang up because they're not helpful to me. So again, this story is an interesting story, but it's a helpful one. It's one that we hear in terms of maybe not quite to that degree, but it's something that we certainly hear from time to time with respect to what's being offered. In light of that too, as I said earlier, it's you contact, you log a service request. Many of our customers get the answer that they need to upgrade to the latest release. And again, that may not be practical for your environment. On the other side, when we talk about $1 million per service request, you think, well, gosh, what does that mean? And I just heard from this from a customer directly just a few weeks ago. This customer, again, they pay multiple millions of dollars to Oracle for support. And the comment is that in many cases, a couple of reasons. One, they rarely actually access Oracle support. And when they do, in those rare occasions, if you break it down in terms of the cost that they're paying for support relative to the support requests that they're logging, it's about $1 million per service request. And what the customer also noted is in many cases for this particular customer, they're actually providing some guidance to Oracle in that regard. So again, two very different examples, but not too unlike some of the other examples that we see across our customer base. So, what do Oracle customers, why do they stay? And there's many reasons to stay. And again, Oracle has good products. It's something that, again, you use an Oracle product, you want to be supported on that. In some cases, we talk about contracts, and we talked about that earlier. That can trap customers with respect to the ways in which you can get in or out of support. We talked about the technical support policies. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of do's and don'ts in there related to matching service level, license set, how programs get interrelated with one another, and how it's very difficult then over time to break apart, for example, support streams. And depending on the contracting vehicle that you may utilize, it actually may cause that contracting vehicle, like a ULA, where you start including more and more of a support stream, so that support stream gets tied together. So again, it's very difficult when you say, why do Oracle's customers stay? It's sometimes very difficult to not stay. I mean, to have an alternative in that regard, because it's too cost prohibitive for the customer. There might be repricing implications, which is again something that's referenced in the technical support policies. But from a practical perspective, we have customers, they need access to security patches. It's something that they need the latest and greatest to. They may have internal controls, meaning that they have to be on the latest release. They have to apply the latest security patches. They may have a corporate mandate with respect to that. So again, it's a reasonable way to go. Or it is Oracle's intellectual property, so they control and they have that information. And so again, it's something that we do. So when you look at it from your perspective, in some cases, it may be seen as no leverage, because either your corporation's mandating it and or you have contracts that make it very difficult for you to make a change. So I think we have a second poll question. And so this question is really around, have you tried to reduce your Oracle support? Again, we have customers that we talk to all the time that try to make attempts to do so, look for ways, and again, is why I'm sure why you're interested in this particular webinar, in ways to do that. Anyway, I sort of smirk a bit. Have you tried? The majority of customers have tried. And again, I'm sure you're probably relating to some of the experiences that I spoke about, but it doesn't mean with respect to, yes, we've tried, the majority of customers have tried. It doesn't mean that there are ways that there is no way to do it. And there's a number of different ways, and Craig is gonna talk about that now.
Thanks, Alice. I'm actually heartened by those results because I was expecting to see the opposite. I was expecting to see, no, it's so difficult we haven't even tried. So it's good that folks are still trying. So maybe you'll get some more information here and be successful next time. I'm assuming they weren't successful, hence why they're on this phone, or they were successful and they want to save even more. So when we talk about reducing Oracle costs, whether it's support costs or cloud costs or licensing costs, we follow this three-step approach. And this approach has been developed really over years because there's some firms out there who will focus on one of these areas, but maybe not another one. And we really want to try to not only get our clients to achieve savings and real savings, not just cost avoidance, but actual cost reduction, and then protect those savings. We'll talk about that in a second. So 3 steps is, number 1, stop paying Oracle more money. You can't reduce your costs if you keep buying more stuff from Oracle. Number 2 is identifying and executing on your reduction plan, in this case, support reduction. And the third part of this process is to protect those savings, because the last thing you want to do is terminate a whole bunch of licenses and reduce your support costs, and then you find yourself out of compliance and you get hit with an audit and you end up spending more money with Oracle in the future. So 3 steps. So the first, stop paying Oracle more money. A great example of that is the unlimited license agreement. And we're going to look at this chart again in a few slides when we do our case studies to see what this customer did. You could see right here, the line is at the top. If a client were to renew their ULA with Oracle, their fees to Oracle would be $14.9 million. If they just certify out of that ULA, they're paying Oracle $3.5 million. So it's a savings of over $10 million just by certifying out of your ULA. And once you certify out of your ULA, as long as you do it properly, you can get licenses for a number of years. You can certify out of your ULA for a few years and then go back into one later. But it's the continuous doing that ULA over and over and over again. You'll see your costs go up and up. So this is a great example of stop giving Oracle more money. Now, once you've gone down that path and stopped the bleeding, then it becomes an exercise of, well, okay, now what do I have? I'm in a stable environment. I'm in compliance, I'm out of that ULA, and now what do I do? The good news is, no matter where you are, even if you are in a ULA, and we'll talk about a client who is in a ULA in a second, there are ways to reduce your costs as long as you have leverage with Oracle. Once you lose your leverage, Oracle's not going to help you reduce costs. You might a little bit about the edges, but you won't achieve significant reductions. So we've developed 13 separate ways, 13 separate strategies that clients can use to actually reduce their support costs. And some of these we haven't developed. Some of these we're working with partners and friends of ours to do this for clients. Some of them, we knew when, back in the day, and we're just optimize them. But 3 of them I wanted to really talk about today is, how do you negotiate with Oracle to reduce? How do you do what Oracle will call a cancel and replace, but we do an optimize, replace, and cancel. And then moving to third-party support. And that's where we're going to bring in an example, that ULA example again, because we want to show you what a real customer did. And then we just throw another one in here. We don't have a case study on this listed here, but we've helped clients do this before, and that's breaking up larger contracts into smaller pieces. So that is totally possible. So if you're in that situation where you've consolidated all of your support contracts into one, or you've consolidated a ULA, there are ways to break those up, doing license assignments and things like that. But again, there's a whole process and methodology to do that properly, because you don't want to leave yourself exposed to Oracle. So plenty of different ways to reduce. So let's talk about real customers and what they've done. So we had one client come to us who was in the middle of a ULA, long-term ULA. They have done a big divestiture. So a large part of their organization was gone. And customers and pretty much everybody, when you're thinking about your costs and you're doing a divestiture, you're thinking, 2 minus 1 should equal 1. Well, Oracle looks at 2 minus 1 equals 4 because they want to keep you paying your 2 and they want to go to the divested entity and have them pay 2. So want to be very careful in any M&A activity because your contracts are pretty much drafted, unless you've highly negotiated them, in Oracle's favor to prevent you from reducing. So client came to us and said, hey, we're spending way too much on Oracle support. We're a fraction of the size we were before. How can you help us reduce? And we actually worked a plan with them to gain leverage with Oracle, to get Oracle back to the drawing board. Basically made Oracle an offer they can't refuse. It was like, either we'll pay less or we'll pay nothing in the case of this client. We helped the client make sure they were in compliance. We helped them optimize their deployments under their ULA. We helped them, in this case, get out of that ULA and then significantly reduce their support costs with Oracle while staying on Oracle support. So, this is the negotiation strategy, but it's not as easy as picking up the phone and saying to Oracle, please help us reduce, right? Those are what those first 3 customers, before they were customers of ours, they all went to Oracle with that approach, but didn't have a plan. And they all got hit, clobbered with an Oracle audit. So you really want to be careful doing this approach. You need to have the whole plan mapped out before you pick up the phone and engage Oracle. And the idea here is the client achieved their leverage, they took control, and then they brought Oracle to the table, right? It wasn't something where Oracle approached them, because Oracle's not going to help this client save $20 million on their own. So high escalations here, but we got it done. And again, those are real numbers and real reductions. It's not like cost avoidance. This is, they are going to spend $20 million less than they would have had they not engaged with us. So we're excited about that win for the client. Then we had another one, optimize, replace, and cancel. So Oracle has a policy, what they call against canceling and replacing. So you're spending $1,000 per support for a license a year. Oracle doesn't want you to cancel that license and buy a new license where you spend $300 for support. It's against their internal best practices for customers to do that, but there's nothing preventing you from doing that if you want to do it, right? You don't have to keep licenses in perpetuity if you want to cancel them. You can always go buy more Oracle stuff. So again, we had a client, opposite situation than the previous one. This client had many contracts with Oracle. They had been buying Oracle over the years. I think they had over 10 or 15 license agreements with Oracle, and each one of them had different discounts, and each one of them had different uplifts. So some of those support contracts, the customer is actually paying more than list price for support. So we helped the customer, again, get back in control, make sure they were in compliance, deploy their Oracle software in a way that required, that was most optimized for their licensing, that required the fewest processors, fewest named users. That client actually went out then and we identified which were those support contracts that were expensive and which of them were priced well. And they bought new licenses and terminated their old expensive licenses. So the savings were over $500,000 a year for this client, and sort of they're back in, I think, year 4 now. So they've saved over $4 million, and that includes the costs of the additional purchases of the licenses. So it's not like they had to spend a ton of money on licenses to achieve these results. Although 500,000 savings, that's a ton of money right there. So opposite situation, many contracts, many deployments, many discounts, looking at the contract side, looking at deployment side, optimize, replace, and cancel. So totally valid approach for any client, even ULA customers. And then finally, our third case study here is a client who moved to third-party support, specifically Rimini Street. So this client, again, same numbers as before, real numbers here, folks. If they had renewed their Oracle ULA, they would have given Oracle $14.9 million. They certified out of it, and then they actually went to Rimini Street at the time of certification and reduced their costs even more. So not just cost avoidance, now we're talking actual cost reduction. So we helped this client managing their ULA. Palisade helped the client manage their ULA. We helped them optimize it so that when they certified, number one, they weren't going to get hit with an Oracle audit. And even if they were, they'd be in compliance. They had enough licenses for years and years to come, so they don't have to go back to Oracle next year to buy more stuff, right? So that's to stop giving Oracle more money. And they were able to make a smooth transition working with Rimini Street. So in this case, when you look at cost avoidance, it's almost 90% what they spent versus what they would have spent if they went sort of down the Oracle roadmap, but they went down their business-driven roadmap, as Rimini Street says, and they only spent 1.65, or they will spend. There's still a couple of years there. So another example of a customer coming out of a ULA and just moving off of Oracle support and moving on to Rimini support. So a great win for this client. Really happy. They're happy with the service they're getting, and they're very happy with the reduction in costs. So there you have sort of 3 case studies in 3 different examples. One in a ULA that client actually stayed with Oracle, one where they had multiple agreements and were able to optimize that, and another where they actually exited the ULA and went off of Oracle support onto Rimini support. So again, lots of different ways to reduce support, and those are 3 out of 13 methods. What last year's #1 complaint that we hear from customers all the time: my Oracle costs are too high. It's universal. So we've been helping customers over the years reduce their support, but this is really the first time that we've put out a specific program designed to do this. And we break our program into 2 parts. The first part is the assessment part, or the diagnostics part, where we work with our clients, we analyze their agreements with Oracle, and we work with them on how they've deployed and what their plans are with Oracle. That takes about 60 days, and there's a small fee associated with that, mostly to get the client's attention, because what we found is when something is free, people don't pay attention to it. So we have a nominal charge in there to get us started. At the end of that 60 days, you'll get a nice report from us detailing, strategies and ways that you can reduce support. And the next part of our engagement is more long-term, where we help the client not only execute on that savings, but also, remember I said it's a 3-step process. We want to protect it, right? So we don't want to go in there with our client and give them lots of ways to reduce and then walk away and leave them exposed to Oracle. Because if I'm the Oracle sales rep and my client is giving me less money, I'm going to try to figure out a way to get more money from that client. So we want to be careful there. And that second part of this engagement lasts about 30 months, and it's a variable fee. So if we don't help you save money, you don't pay us. So it's a win for both of us there. So that's our program. We actually have started it. We've got a couple of clients now who are actively working at all those case studies you saw. We're sort of the development of this program, but now that we've got it optimized and ready to go, we're ready to go in production with it. So that is our cost reduction program. You can see that at palisadecompliance.com/reduce support. It's up on the website. If you're interested, you can sign up there, get more information. You can send us a note at info@palisadecompliance. We're all over social media, LinkedIn and Twitter. I've got lots of videos and things for folks as you're managing your Oracle. We've got case studies. And I believe we also have time for questions. So Jen, have there been any questions that have come through for Allison and I?
Yes, we had one question just come through, and it says, have you ever seen anyone ask Oracle to reduce their support and then get audited?
Well, I think we answered that right at the very beginning. So the first 3 customers that we had before they were our customers, they literally all went to Oracle and asked for help. I believe 2 of them got an official audit letter, and one of them was sort of this unofficial stealth audit. They thought the sales rep was helping them, and the sales rep was really trying to identify areas of non-compliance. So I think, Oracle, that's not the only way they target customers for audits. I think if Oracle believes you're out of compliance, they're going to audit you. If Oracle believes you're in compliance, whether or not you're trying to reduce your support costs, does not have effect on whether or not you'll be audited. So it's more, are you is your deployment out of line with your contracts? That is the defining item when it comes to support reductions. But if Oracle's going in there and digging and you're inviting them in, if they find something, they can't unlook at that.
Great, thank you. We have not had any other questions come through. So if anyone has anything, this is the time to ask.
And in the meantime, Allison, thanks very much for your time today and sharing with us your thoughts on supports from both sides, from your time at Oracle and now here at Palisade. So we really appreciate that. And Jen, thanks for your help setting this all up. And thank you to everyone who joined the call. Was there any last questions before we wrap up?
No, someone just asked if we will send out the recording, and yes, we will. But other than that, no other questions have come in.
Perfect. Well, thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.